The New York Jets fired Robert Saleh, but they fired the wrong coach. That and more on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome in to the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today, as I am every Wednesday, by Locked On NFL expert, the brain, Luke Braun. On today's episode, I'm going to tell you why the San Francisco 49ers will be just fine, why the Denver Broncos are frauds, and why the New York Jets fired the wrong coach. Before we get into it, thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen of the day and for being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Make sure that you tune in to the afternoon edition of Locked On NFL and step into the barbershop with Tony Wiggins. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the code LockedOnNFL, all lowercase, to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Luke, we got the first head coach firing of the season. The New York Jets let go of Robert Saleh, and it sounds like it was a contested situation with security walking him out of the building and all of that.
Surprise.
I mean, right. It does sound insane. And I got to tell you, I think that the New York Jets made a big, big mistake here. I am not going to sit here and argue that Robert Saleh is some great coach or anything like that. I think that Robert Saleh is a middle of the road head coach at the end of the day, but he consistently had that defense playing great football. They were top 5 in EPA per play this year. And I think that the worst coach on the staff is a coach that's going to stay around, and it's Nathaniel Hackett on offense. Nathaniel Hackett is not an NFL offensive coordinator. He's friends with Aaron Rodgers. He's an Aaron Rodgers merchant. And if the Jets wanted to make a change on the coaching staff, they should have just fired Nathaniel Hackett, but they can't because they're catering to Aaron Rodgers. It was a big mistake to let go of Robert Saleh in the middle of the season like this.
They are absolutely beholden to this weird deal with the devil that they've made with Aaron Rodgers. And no part of that organization was really loyal to Robert Saleh. So I guess that's why it's him and not Hackett. But right, to your point, that's not a merit decision. And we sort of expect these things to be decisions on merit, on who is the guy who is causing the problem, get him out of the building so that Jets fans can enjoy a better Jets team. And that's not what's happening here. This is 100% a decision made out of politics. I don't mean American politics. I mean company politics. Right. 1,000,000%. And there's a conspiracy going around that, Robert Saleh, who's gotten a little bit of, I'll say, light heat for a Lebanon patch that he wore during games. That's a heritage thing. He's a Lebanese guy. Just like Nick Sirianni wearing the Italian flag. That's something the NFL not only allows, but encourages as part of their international outreach. Right. No owner is going to have an issue with that. Okay. That's not the thing. Just because that country's in the news all of a sudden. But the politics were a couple things. For one, Woody Johnson was working as ambassador to the UK when Robert Saleh got fired. So he has no loyalty to this guy. He walked in and this new guy was here and they had to try to establish a relationship. Mm-hmm. Aaron Rodgers, Nathaniel Hackett, Woody Johnson brought those guys in. Woody Johnson made the decision to get into bed with that, that clique of the NFL of all those old Packers that have now played for the Jets. So there's that political thing where Robert Saleh is kind of the odd man out as this new clique of people have showed up at the behest of the owner and have sort of made the Jets into their own, which has not worked out great. They're 2-3. But Robert Saleh has done a great job with that defense. I'll say right now, I have never seen a team cover Justin Jefferson like they did in London, ever. Not since his rookie year when he didn't even know the playbook and he wasn't quite, fully realized as a superstar. I've never seen a team. You've seen teams take him out of the game, right? He'll get 15 yards because they double him all day. I've never seen a team man him up and get that many just absolutely clamps reps on him. And then a couple of times they caught him zoning into quarters and then they would get a big explosive and he racks up 92 yards somehow still. But boy, They were all over him every time they manned up. He could not get open. I've never seen anyone do that to Justin Jefferson before. I think that is a testament to roster building, but it's also a testament to Robert Saleh having the confidence in those players to go do it. What I think this is, honestly, is that the Jets went to London. Woody Johnson got a nice owner's suite with all of his pals from being an ambassador over there.
Mm-hmm.
His team looked embarrassingly bad, and he threw a tantrum. I think this is a classic owner hissy fit. A tantrum where you just go fire the guy that's most convenient for you to fire, and it's the guy that you haven't really established a relationship over the last 3 years because you didn't bring him in yourself. And you go, well, clearly that guy's the problem. I didn't have anything to do with it because that's how these billionaires think. If they didn't touch it, then it must be the problem. And you went and fired the wrong guy, and now that I think the Jets are going to get a lot worse.
So the question becomes, who takes over the mantle next? My guy John B. from Locked On Jets is going to answer that.
I'm John, the host of Locked On Jets, and there's big Jets news on this Tuesday. The team has fired head coach Robert Saleh. On one level, this is surprising. This is the first in-season coaching change the Jets have made under Woody Johnson since he became owner. On another level, it's not surprising. The Jets are 2-3, they're underachieving, and one of the team leaders, Quincy Williams, after an ugly loss to the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday, implied that there's a lack of accountability in the locker room. Defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich has been promoted. He will be the head coach going forward on an interim basis. No changes to the offensive coaching staff, though. Much maligned offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett will stay in place, at least for now. We'll have more on this ahead on the Locked On Jets podcast. Tune into Locked On Jets every Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Now, I think that, leaving Jeff Ulbrich in place and giving him the head coaching job, obviously he's been their defensive coordinator under Robert Saleh, so some of the defensive principles may stay the same. The defense may, still be able to perform with that kind of continuity there. But at the end of the day, like John mentioned, you did not get rid of the real problem if you're looking at the coaching staff. Now, you could talk about the owner at the top and all that stuff, but just from the coaching staff standpoint, to me, Luke, one time my dad was in the military and he had a wisdom tooth growing in, and he was in the desert. They didn't have the equipment to cut out his wisdom tooth in the desert, so they pulled the tooth in front of it to try to help it. This is what the Jets did. They didn't cut out the real problem. They pulled the other problem and hoped to relieve the problem. This is what just happened. Nathaniel Hackett was the problem again. The Jets, top 5 in EPA in defense, bottom 5 in EPA in offense. Nathaniel Hackett is the problem, and they didn't get rid of it. So even if the defense continues, even if the continuity with Ulbrich allows the defense to continue, the offense is still not going to improve from this move. And the offense was the problem. The offense scored 9 points against the Denver Broncos. Like, Nathaniel Hackett, being an Aaron Rodgers merchant, has bought him so many years of high-level pay. It is just absolutely insane.
He just cozied up to the right conspiracy theorist. It's gonna get worse for the Jets before it gets better. This is that situation. Like, they are in a quagmire. Like, they're stuck with now this Aaron Rodgers, Nathaniel Hackett thing until they can get out from under that contract. And even after that, they're going to be dealing with dead cap. They're going to be dealing with, the kind of the after effects of that, and then going into a rebuild. I mean, if you're a Jets fan, you might want to start scouting 2026 quarterbacks, because it's probably going to be that. And that's going to be the next time that you feel hope. Good luck. Thanks, Woody Johnson.
Well, I mean, the Arch Manning sweepstakes has already begun for about 15 fan bases in the NFL. But with that being said, there are some teams with winning records in the NFL that I don't really believe in. And then there are some teams with losing records in the NFL that I think will be just fine. We're going to talk about that. And Broncos fans, I'm coming for you again. Before I do, though, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to play daily fantasy sports. That's why they have over 10 million members and have given out billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks makes daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you have to do is pick a lineup of 2 to 6 players and say whether those players are going to do more or less than the Prize Picks projection. For example, Justin Jefferson, 83.5 receiving yards. Patrick Mahomes, 260 passing yards. Tyreek Hill, 97.5 receiving yards. All you do is pick 2 to 6 players and say whether they're going to do more or less. And if you win, you can get up to 100 times your money just by hitting a couple of players correct on Prize Picks. Make sure that you download the Prize Picks app, Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's Prize Picks. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. It's Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, Luke, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about the New York Jets making a big mistake and firing the wrong coach for all the wrong reasons. Now we got to talk about some teams that we simply do not believe in despite their winning records. And Luke, I feel like I have been going at it with Broncos fans for years based on my takes here on the Locked On NFL podcast.
Righteous crusade.
Right. Of course, I got to. It started a couple of years ago with the Russell Wilson trade where I was open that I did not think that was going to work. It continued with the Sean Payton trade, which I do not think was a good trade for the Denver Broncos. Now, a lot of Broncos fans are saying that I'm wrong. I'm an idiot, Luke, because the Broncos are 3-2. But let me tell you this. The Broncos are absolute frauds, okay? Their defense
fraudulent mediocre.
As a man who has seen this before, really good defense, keeping you in games, winning you games when the offense isn't doing enough, but knowing in the back of your head, this team isn't quite as good as they look. I've seen that a lot in my neck of the woods. That is exactly what's happening with the Broncos right now. Now, I know that a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, they scored 30-some unanswered points or 27 unanswered points, and they had a great offensive performance in the second half. Against the Raiders, against the quitting Raiders who were absolutely quitting on a bad head coaching hire that they should have never made in the first place in Antonio Pierce. Like, good win for the Broncos against the Bucs. Give them their credit there. Again, defense and special teams led. They go into the Jets, and the Jets just implode. The Jets just fired their coach. So they win 10-9 against the Jets. Woohoo. Blah, blah, blah. And then they beat the lowly Raiders, who might end up as the worst team in the NFL this year. Look, the Broncos defense is fantastic. Patrick Surtain is probably the defensive player of the year right now. He's at least in the conversation. Their special teams continues to make great plays and set up good field position. But this offense is not good against good teams. The Broncos are frauds, man. Nobody's going to believe in them, and there's no way that they're making the playoffs.
Bo Nix has attempted 8 passes over 25 yards, 8 true shot plays. 1 pick, a couple of touchdowns, and a bunch of incompletions. Not many, more than 29. The lion's share of the Broncos passing offense has occurred beneath 10 yards. It's a famous thing. The stats are always very funny. They always only throw past 10 yards a handful of times a game.
Bo Nix
they do not trust Bo Nix. I don't care what Sean Payton says. They do not trust Bo Nix. Sean Payton does not trust him, and he is dialing up the old man Breeze playbook that he had for when Breeze couldn't throw, because they once again have a quarterback that they do not trust to throw difficult passes on time and in rhythm. It was the same thing at Oregon, and it's the same thing in Denver. I don't care what Sean Payton says. The tape don't lie, and it shows that you don't trust this guy. And if you don't have that guy, like, eventually to make the playoffs, to make a run in the playoffs, you need him to take over the game. You need somebody on your team to take over the game on the offense. Eventually, you're going to be trailing, and you're going to have a game that you're down by 14, and you need to win it. How do you find a way to do that? I'm sorry, it's not with slant flat.
No, and they're absolutely not going to be able to do it. Now, I will say this. Our guys over at Locked On Broncos, they're believers.
We mentioned Denver. They had 40 yards rushing at halftime. They finished the game with 109 yards on the ground and a mile-high salute. Shout out to Javonte Williams. Really, I think, being a big catalyst, running through the face of Trevon Mulrig. Obviously, Marshawn Lynch would have been proud there. It was a great overall team offensive effort in the second half. They really built off of that, what the defense was able to do, special teams, complimentary football, and it was an ultimate team win.
Yeah, it was. And we saw Bo Nix really take advantage of some good opportunities that he was given. The turnovers forced, the field position set up by the punt returns and the kickoff returns as well. And he totaled 3 touchdowns in this game, Cody. I mean, 2 passing touchdowns, a rushing touchdown. Could have had another touchdown pass to Troy Franklin that we talked about the spat on the sideline with he and Sean Payton. I don't know that I guess we may never know what it exactly had to do with.
I don't really care about the spat on the sideline. Football's an emotional game. People are going to get
for
mad
sure.
and speak their mind. I really don't. That has nothing to do with my thoughts on the
I
Broncos.
think it's good,
But to
honestly.
me, yeah, it's good.
It's
that
fire,
people care. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the first half Broncos, who are about to go down 14-0 against the Raiders at home before Gardner Minshew makes a Gardner Minshew classic mistake. Like, if the Raiders were about to start putting it on them, and then PS2 makes an incredible play. And look, you can't just say, oh, if they don't make this play, then things are different, because that's not what happened. But at the end of the day, the first half version of the Broncos is who the Broncos really are, not the version of the Broncos that started running up the score against a Raiders team that is absolutely quitting on their head coach. So I just do not buy it whatsoever. I know, Luke, that you have another team out there that has a winning record that you're not buying into, and I don't think I agree with you.
I don't see it with the Steelers. I'm sorry, man. After that Cowboys game, that was a deeply ugly, disgusting game.
Yes,
hated that Cowboys game. And Mike Tomlin has this superpower of always having the Steelers in the game, and that's why they will just kind of like accidentally stumble their way into 8 wins every year. They're always in it, and I get that. That's good coaching. That's good defense. And your defense will keep you in a lot of games. But I watched Justin Fields for a long time. Sunday Night Football was the first time that I sat down and really paid attention to Justin Fields in the Steelers, and not just watching highlights, where I really tried to sit and say, what's this guy doing? He's the same freaking guy. Yep. He's absolutely the same guy in a slightly different offensive structure, but I do not believe that a Justin Fields-led offense, for a lot of the same reasons as the Broncos, can take the Steelers past that. We're a 500th-ish, maybe if we get the right tiebreakers, we're a spicy 7th seed that someone can dunk on by 24 in the wild card round. I don't see them being any further along than they were with that. And to be honest, when Russell Wilson is he healthy again? He's the emergency third, I guess.
They're saying that he's off the injury report. He's a full participant.
He's completely healthy.
He's likely ready to go. Well, completely healthy is a different conversation than being off the injury report, in my opinion. But,
well, okay, completely healthy as per the party line.
Right.
But I don't think that we have. I don't think we get through this whole season without seeing Russell Wilson. I think I just know Justin Fields well enough. He's got that game in him that makes it happen, and I think that the Steelers have more problems in front of them than just being 3-2 and losing the division lead to the Ravens.
Yeah, I think Russell Wilson does take over, and we talked about this on yesterday's show with Lauren, that they probably need to do that because the ceiling is higher with Justin Fields, but the floor is lower. And for the Pittsburgh Steelers and the way that they play football, with the defense, with just being smart, not hurting themselves, Russell Wilson
get 20 a game.
Russell Wilson fits that better right now. But at the end of the day, I guess I don't necessarily disagree with you in what you're saying, but to me, I don't think the Broncos are a playoff team. I do think the Steelers are still a playoff team because I trust in Mike Tomlin and I trust in that defense more. So when I say that I still believe in the Steelers, it's that I think they will make the playoffs. Now, I still think they're going to be a get dunked on wild card weekend team no matter what. But at the end of the day, I think with Russell Wilson just being not awful and taking the gimmies and not missing the little throws to keep it moving, I think the Steelers are still a playoff team.
So playoff team to me, I don't want to say it, but playoff team to me, if you're the 7th seed that didn't really if you're playing a playoff game that doesn't have playoff implications, you don't count. You don't get flowers for sneaking in at 8 and 9 and getting absolutely mollywopped by the Ravens in their house as a processional ceremonial. If you want to make the playoffs as a 7th seed, I don't need you to do what the Packers did to the Cowboys last year, but I need you to make it interesting. And I don't know if when you get to that point, when you're playing those kinds of teams, I don't know if the Steelers have it in them to make that interesting, unless they specifically get a divisional matchup that they know super well and it's the third time they played, and then that's kind of an equalizer and weird stuff can happen. But even that, we've seen, the 49ers Seahawks, for example, last year, Bills Dolphins, where it's just sort of still just a mollywhopping. And I sorry, Steelers, I don't respect you.
Hey, and we'll leave it there. But hey, there are teams out there with losing records right now who we do believe in. We're going to go over those. It's Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Hey, NFL fans, yep, I'm talking to you, NFL fans. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can go check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more on the same exact page where you place your bets. FanDuel is an all-encompassing hub of football information. And right now, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. If you are feeling some type of way about teams that you believe or don't believe in making the playoffs, FanDuel is a good place to put your money where your mouth is. Make sure that you go check out America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Hillsdale College. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend that time more wisely to improve yourself? Answer our sponsor, Hillsdale College. Hillsdale College is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including Constitution 101, the meaning of history of Constitution, the Great American Story, a land of hope, even the rise and fall of the Roman Republic. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced, so you can start whenever, tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. All right, Luke, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. The New York Jets make a big mistake. We don't believe in the Broncos and the Steelers, but what are some teams that we do believe in that may not be off to the best start? We're going to get into that. Before we do, thank you again for making Locked On NFL your first listen. Make sure to check out the afternoon edition of Locked On NFL and step into the barbershop with the barber himself, Tony Wiggins. All right, Luke, I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit out of the gate here. The San Francisco 49ers are going to be just fine. They're missing Christian McCaffrey. They've got injuries all over the place. Like, I believe in Kyle Shanahan. I believe in the talent on the roster. It's been a little ugly early on. I understand that. Coming from a perspective of a person who covers a team that has beaten the 49ers, do you think I'm crazy here, or do you think, this is just one of those Super Bowl hangover things for the 49ers?
Maybe Super Bowl hangover. They played well in the game that I watched of the Vikings 49ers. That was a hard fought game, and I thought the 49ers did a lot of things well, but I am worried. Kyle Shanahan keeps doing the Kyle Shanahan thing of like blowing leads to divisional opponents, and taking those L's is really tough because that's going to matter for tiebreakers coming down the stretch. And when you're 2 and 3, guess what? You're going to need that. Yeah. So that might be the difference between, road and home in the playoffs and stuff. But if we're talking about like, are they still going to make the playoffs?
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to like just to look at them and say, oh, this team is only going to win 5 games down the stretch or something as they get healthy. But isn't that always the thing with the 49ers? If they're not at full strength, it feels like if they don't have all of their big, their Transformers weapons in Kittle, and like if they don't have all the Avengers, that it's sort of they become so much more beatable. And the teams that they've lost to here are, the Vikings are red hot. That's one thing, but like the Rams are in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And the Cardinals we're about to argue about. Those are 2 teams that if the 49ers want to be the serious contender that we understand them to be, you can't give up those late leads against them. You can't have those classic Kyle Shanahan collapses. That you can't show us that twice in a row and then expect you to be a contender. But if you're talking just fine, your definition of just fine is will they make the playoffs? Then yeah, that's fine. But I don't know if we're looking at the NFC West winner right now in the 49ers. I don't know if like that division feels a lot more wide open than it did a month ago.
Well, I can tell you One other person that's not ready to hit the panic button on the San Francisco 49ers is my guy, Eric Crocker from Locked On 49ers.
It's definitely not panic time. And I think the biggest reason why is because, one, as I watch the NFL and even more specifically the NFC, I just don't see a whole lot of dominant football being played. Even a team like the Minnesota Vikings, who definitely, like, they handled the 49ers, and it probably could have been a lot worse than it was. You look at kind of some of their last couple victories, and, just they look like a team that can be had, even though they're 5-0. Watch the Dallas Cowboys game. They almost lost, and almost isn't good enough, but 3-2 team. It looked like the Pittsburgh Steelers had them on the ropes. They had to convert on 4th down. Now, these teams are finding ways to win, and it feels like the 49ers are finding ways to lose, but on any given day, it feels like the 49ers, if they play the football they can play and just close out the game, it should result in a W. So I don't think I'm watching any of these games and feeling like any team scares me. So for that reason, I am not ready to hit the panic button just yet.
It's interesting the point you make about Kyle Shanahan and them needing all of their weapons, or it like doesn't work. To me, it would be like a Michelin star chef who can make you the best steak tartare, but can't make a hamburger with regular ground beef.
Right.
It's like they just totally fall apart if they don't have like their prime ingredients. But at the end of the day, I agree with Croc. I think the 49ers will be fine. And a lot of it comes down to there's just not a lot of good football teams in the NFL right now. Like, there's just not a lot to worry about. So I think San Francisco will figure it out.
Can't relate.
Fair enough. Well, you heard him talking about the Vikings, and I saw the fire in your eyes. But the team that beat the San Francisco 49ers this weekend in a crazy upset, the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah.
Luke, you're a believer.
I am a believer in the Arizona Cardinals. I've always liked Kyler Murray. I've been very much with Alex Clancy over there at Locked On Cardinals, where he has said for years that it was, that Cliff was the problem, that it's not Kyler Murray. And I've been very in lockstep with him on that. And I think the way that the Cardinals have lost some of these games and the way that they've made their wins have been very impressive, right? They go play the Rams at home and they cook them. Cook them, right? They're not giving up 10-point leads in the fourth quarter. We got baseball caps on Matt Stafford by the end of that game. They take this one off of the 49ers. They almost take one off the Lions, who maybe is one of the other only good teams in the league.
Right.
The Cardinals feel like they're in every game. And in a very similar way to, and it's just that, they haven't, the ball hasn't bounced their way at just that right moment, but in a very similar way to the Steelers, but because it's propelled by possible explosiveness, it feels to me like this is a team, if they got really hot and started having a Commanders-like run where they go like 4-1 over the next month or so, and suddenly they're in the thick of the NFC playoff conversation, are you going to be like, whoa, Marvin Harrison, I didn't know you had that in you? Like, no, you're not. They've already shown you what they have in them. And I think they can absolutely catch fire and get hot. They just have to find consistency from down to down and keep themselves ahead of the chains and keep themselves in those positions where they can go for those shots. And then I think you can absolutely have just, holy crap, this is Marvin Harrison, NFC player, offensive player of the month.
Well, the one reason I don't believe in the Cardinals as a playoff team is the thing that you didn't mention at all during that, and that's the defense. I do not trust their defense. I do not think they have enough talent on defense. So I know that, Jonathan Gannon should be able to help that situation out. He is a defensive guy, so in theory, he should be able to elevate them a little bit, and then the offense can be explosive, and I agree with you there, but I think they're just going to lose games because their defense can't hack it. So I think the Cardinals are frisky.
I see what you did there.
Yeah. Should have used that one in the first segment for sure. But
no, it's a circle. It's a callback.
Yeah, there we go. We finish how we start. But
yeah, wait, is Jonathan Gannon running a Fangio scheme still? Because if that's true, I totally changed my take. Fangio schemes are fraudulent, and the Cardinals are doomed.
Well, listen, Luke, put me on the spot with telling me to tell you the coverage schemes that, yes.
I think, he came off the Eagles, so I assume that it is. But
that is my understanding that is what he's doing. So I just don't believe in the
never
Cardinals
mind.
defense.
Sorry, Cardinals.
I think they're a year away. They need to add some talent on and they've had some injuries on that side of the ball too. So I think they're a frisky and fun team to watch. They're like the anti-Seahawks to me. Like all the Seahawks wins are against crap teams, but they have a winning record. all of the Cardinals wins are against really good teams, in my opinion, and they have a losing record. So I get what you're saying, but I just think that defense is going to let them down, and the Cardinals are 1 year away from being a real contender, a real playoff stalwart, I think. But with that being
Considering where
said,
they've been, that's a spot they can probably be pretty happy with.
yeah, I think so too. I think they've taken great steps from where they were last year, and they're going to continue taking those steps, but just don't think that they're going to make the leap maybe to a playoff team quite yet. But with that being said, that is going to do it for today's edition of Locked On NFL. Make sure that you tune in for the afternoon edition of Locked On NFL with Tony Wiggins in the barbershop. I am your host, the Madman, Tyler Rowland, here as I always am every Wednesday with the brain, Luke Braun. And as I tell you guys every single episode, stay safe out there.